also yesterday's resolution on the simplified access to registration. So we are allowed to vote, although in a limited way, because we may vote only for political parties, not for territorial constituencies candidates. Our committee has developed a draft law that we passed on to several MPs that introduces a procedure and makes it possible to vote for in territorial constituencies elections as well, where we live now. However, yesterday I heard an objection from a very respected MP that this novel introduces an opportunity for falsifications, but this is not the right position, because the opportunity to falsify elections does not mean that people should be deprived of their right to vote. We think that the procedure that we offer excludes the opportunity to falsify elections in territorial constituencies. Hello. This was said about the draft law and the issue of voting, but I'll talk about another topic which is not less important for Donbas. Recently there were programs of Prime Minister and the President introduced, and we saw that there's no humanitarian component there, and they still neglect this, but the 23-year-long history of Donbas showed us that neglection on the side of the state caused the explosion that we see now there, and this could happen in any other region if it were so neglected as Donbas. At the moment, we see the splash of the explosion of patriotism in Donbas on liberated territories, and we see it even in a larger scale in Mariupol, because the enemy is at the gates, and the northern parts of Donetsk and Luhansk region, they witness the retreat of patriotic euphoria because they don't see any changes. The people remained in power who were there before, and the people who are running for MP seats are the same people who exploited the region for all the previous years. So the lack of economic changes, cultural and humanitarian changes lead again to lumpenization of the region, which is a great danger not only for the occupied territory, but also the risk of spreading this disease to other territories controlled by the Ukrainian Authority. I think that my colleagues will tell you more about Mariupol. I am Iryna Perkova. I am a public activist from Mariupol. Mariupol today is a frontline zone, and let's look truth in the face. Yes, there is an explosion of patriotism, but I'll tell you what we all know. Not everybody in liberated or Ukrainian-controlled territories support the Ukrainian Authority, and quite a lot of people are on separatist position. Rather, many people help the militants or are prepared to do this, and the development of situation in the future depends on the position of Ukrainian authorities, and the position of authorities is a huge problem. Now, in all the power structures in Donetsk region and other regions, there are still people who supported anti-Maidan, who took part in rallies under Russian flags. There are still people in the law enforcement structures who tolerated the beating of people just for Ukrainian flags and because they were pro-Ukrainian, and they were also calmly watching the seizure of administrative buildings by small groups of separatists, which could be easily prevented. So now they are still in power. Yes, they have repainted themselves, and they are as if responsible for the defense of the cities. But in reality, the defense of the cities is done by volunteers and activists, not in cooperation, but actually in opposition to those who are in power. And now the former forces from the Party of Regions and Communists who financed territories and incited them are going to get into the parliament of the country that is talking about European values, of the country that tries to shed corruption network, which for quite some time was being developed by the Party of Regions. They have made rebranding. They are now in parties that have other names. Some of them are non-party people in the moment, but these people are still traitors and embezzlers, and they are financing the war in the southeast of our country. If we now talk, I mean the society and the president, talking about the elections to the parliament as a natural illustration, we should not allow those forces to get to the parliament, and we see only one way. We should tell the voters who is who and what is waiting for us in the future. Slogans are slogans, of course, but these new forces, repainted, who say that they will bring about stability and restoration, I think we should criticize this. Let the Party of Regions show what from the industry was restored during their power and what kind of stability they brought. It was stably bad. And people should make their conscious choice and understand what their election will bring about. Oksana Yermishyna. Hello, everybody. The situation in Mariupol is actually similar to the situation in other cities of Donetsk region. The problems that Oleg mentioned, multiplied by destruction and poverty of people, and the irresponsibility of the power who make statements but do nothing to fulfill those statements, it leads to the fact that the election campaign is not adequate. I can tell you that people who survived the war have the right to hope to build the new Ukraine, but at the moment they do not have such a hope. I'd like to quote several names from party lists. The percentage of pro-Ukrainian candidates, which was there even under Yanukovych's power, is now almost absent because the state cannot guarantee the safety of those candidates. So in Kramatorsk, this son of Bliznyuk, his business partner and current MP, all from the Party of Regions, same in Krasny Liman, same in Slavyansk. The husband of Natalia Korolevska is going to win. In Konstantinovka, Shevchenko from the Party of Regions. Razumny, who is accused of separatism, and there's a similar situation in Krasnoarmeysk. I would not list everybody. The journalists have all the necessary skills to get and analyze this information, but the percentage of pro-Ukrainian candidates on these elections is miserably low, and the pro-Ukrainian candidates who are still running, they have unexplicable slogans that, for instance, will not be accepted by the local Ukrainian elect voters. For instance, they want to make a holiday out of the date of the creation of OUN-UPA. I'm not against this, but you should do this after a stage-by-stage laborious work, and only when the society will be ready to do this. Now, to talk about this in destroyed cities where people do not know how they will survive winter, I think this is a lose situation. I don't know why democratic forces are just voluntarily giving back the authority to those pro-party of regions active leaders. Probably today is the last chance for Ukraine when democratic forces had to unite. This has not happened. They have not put forward single candidates. They have not provided support for those candidates, and they have not fought for liberated territories. And instead of becoming a Ukrainian shield, the liberated territories become the zone of huge tension. The tension level has reached historical maximum. We're not even asking, we're demanding from the authorities so that they pay attention to those regions and develop together with us and other organizations state-run programs of implementation of Ukrainian ideas into this society. We have to start to act. Investment projects, patriotic projects, the projects that can really unite this society. In the society, of course, there are people with diametrically juxtaposed ways. Separatists, there is no movement from the security service or the Ministry of Interior. What is going to happen to people who killed and tortured people? They are going around those cities and they are intimidating pro-Ukrainian citizens. It is really scary to show your pro-Ukrainian position in liberated cities. We had so many chances to build Ukraine as we wanted, but it is about the joke about a person who did not use God-sent boat during the flood, but found himself in Adam. Our citizens' position, civil position, is our last chance for united and peaceful Ukraine. I address the journalism. Please do not sell yourself. There is no amount of money to pay for the opportunity of Ukraine to vanish as a state. The message is, if you say that they called for war, every citizen of Ukraine should stop at the ballot box and think whether they like the level of pension and salary, whether they are protected by or from the police. Do they think that if that people who are in power will be able to organize an active defense in the case of intervention? Please treat these elections responsibly. This is not the problem of Donbas. This is just a problem of the entire Ukraine. In Poland, there was a civil action which was called Hide Your Granny's Passport. This event was directed and non-allowing communists to go to the Polish parliament, because grannies are nostalgic about their Soviet past, and they very often do not think over the choice that they execute. So I want to address every citizen of Ukraine. Please do not hide your granny's passport, but talk to every granny and tell them what will be the result of the spontaneous or unthought of actions that they do by the ballot box. I thank you very much. I believe in Ukraine.
Any questions? Could you please tell, now in the internet people are actively discussing the issue that Taruta will be dismissed and some General Kivtenko will be appointed as the governor. We believe the day before yesterday, Yuri Lutsenko said that the governor will be replaced because he's running to the elections. We have no objections against General Kivtenko. We believe that in the situation in Donbas, in the regions which are liberated, we do need a strong hand. But we have a couple of questions, not about the candidate, but about the procedure, about the order. What started happening there in the beginning of March? Why most of the population started supporting separatist behavior, separatist moods? One of the explanations is that after the party of Yanukovych, there were no representatives in Donetsk and Lugansk regions to which the voters could have delegated the protection of their rights. And I would like to address the president, the government who are appointing people there. I would like to request them to pay more attention at the patriots who are there, because we believe that within these months there are some local leaders who have been formed there, and they are pro-Ukrainian. There are names known and there are names less known. Krapachev Vitaly, who was the member of the Party of Regions, he was the member of the Municipal Council, but from the very beginning he started fighting separatists, and in the result his business is ruined, his friends were killed, and he is just fighting, just like a regular militiaman. We would like the authorities to look for people inside Donbas, to look for local leaders. And also we would like now to have the public discussion of the candidates. The appointments are good. General Moskal was appointed, no objections. Why people are appointed like they were appointed 2-3 years ago during Yanukovych? So in how should this be happening, involving the public to such discussions? Yesterday here there was a member of parliament who was explaining how the candidates to this anti-corruption committee will be appointed. Why the governor cannot be appointed just or elected just like these people to the anti-corruption bureau? Basically, the authorities have to explain why they prefer this person to another person. Maybe the public will recommend someone. Maybe the person who's recommended by the public should be appointed the first deputy or vice versa. There should be discussion. There should be a democratic procedure, besides involving the public to electing new people to be appointed to key positions. What you've been talking about, to put more people from Donbas to key positions, what else should the president and Ukrainian government do to preserve Donbas as a Ukrainian territory? We would like to see more responsibility in information policy, because very often the leaders of the state make such messages which could be perceived well all over Ukraine, but those people who are there and who know the information from the inside, they perceive it as messages that do not correspond to reality. Can you give an example? For example, a very simple example. A couple days ago, there was Iryna was talking about situation in Donetsk. She was saying that, for example, in the city of Donetsk, there's one street which is beautiful, and 100 meters away there are just ruins because money were laundered there. There was a lot of money laundering. And also people should feel that the state is taking care of them, because the function of the state is to take care of people and to provide basic rights to people. And the main one, we believe, is the right for good life, not any type of life. When the Vice Prime Minister says that in Donbas the winter will be bad and the occupied regions are not ready for the winter, but the citizens can anytime go to any other regions of Ukraine. My question is, where could they go? Because after the ceasefire started, few dozens of people from here went back to occupied territories because they could not find place here. And the conditions they were offered, they could not agree to living in such not proper conditions. What else can the authorities do? Gennadiy said about responsibility of the authorities, talking about honesty of statements and messages. And I would like to talk about the responsibility of the authorities in general. When the head of the state comes to liberated Slavyansk and says that the city will be restored in a month and a half, then he leaves and nothing happens. Such messages, such statements affect people. Those people who were pro-Ukrainian, they start even to hesitate. Now, this communication from top down should be very, very clear and very responsible. Once you said something, tell people that it will take a year, but give a time frame and tell that in 3 months so much will be done, in half a year so much, and in a year the situation will be like that. Because a powerful country, the U.S., when New Orleans was flooded, they spent 6 years to restore with all the economic resources. Here, the scale of destruction in Donbas will probably be much bigger than the scale of that flooding. So the authorities should be very careful in their statements. They should not just tell something to calm down the society today, because tomorrow the society will explode, because nothing is done. The communication from top down should be clear, transparent, and all intellectual forces are to be concentrated in the region which is liberated, so that by this liberated region, you can show to the whole state that the state is exercising its functions. And that's important not just for us, for people from these regions, but for those who are there. Ukraine looks at these territories they're looking at how the state, what it does to people who are left there. And the question is, how does the state behave in this situation? That's the main thing. I would like to add the problems existing now in Donetsk and Lugansk regions because of the war. These are the problems which are the problems of the whole of our country. We just see them now. They became obvious. The problem of the lack of dialogue of authorities with people, of irresponsible promises which are never implemented. If we look at any region of our country, we will see many examples like that. And we shouldn't be saying that this is just the problem of Donbas. That's the problem of our country, of authorities, of the structure of authorities which was created in the past. And the message of our organization is what's happening in our country, this country. There is a chance to use this situation as opportunity and not as the problem, because what's happening in the liberated territories, it cannot be worse there because everything's ruined. On these territories, you can do any experiments, economic, social, practically any experiments. It will not be worse. You have to do something. Our organization has some projects. We have many people, specialists in different spheres. We have ideas. We know what can be done. And if authorities listen to us, we will be able to do a lot together for the country. Do you, what does your Committee on Internally Displaced Persons do? Do you give your ideas to the authorities? What we have been formed recently, and what we are doing now, that's like our launch. We are grateful to the UCMC for this opportunity to talk about that to the whole country. I will answer your question. Yes, really, we are sending our draft laws to MPs, and we conduct negotiations with many parties. We are trying to get to the top, probably will get to the President and Prime Minister. We draft laws which allow to reformat the problem of displaced persons so that it provides a lot of opportunities for the economy of the country. I can read you what we are doing. We offer to resolve the problem of housing by finding some ruined houses which we offer to repair ourselves, and also we offer to organize some mini settlements which will be oriented to the sectors of economy which are priorities for Ukraine, like energy, alternative energy sector, and this will allow Ukraine to create the structure which will implement into itself not just the displaced persons but the citizens of the regions. We will be implementing our sectors. We have many projects in humanitarian sphere. We ourselves were volunteers, and we know how volunteers organizations interact with the IDPs. This work of volunteers with IDPs will last for years, and that humanity sphere is where we also do a lot, talking about knowledge, skills, and opportunities. We don't have any more time for questions. Thank you for talking about that. Do you have any website? Yes, we do have our page in the Facebook, and we are developing our website, and we'll be giving information about everything we have, about our ideas and so on. Our next briefing will